Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, February 14th, 2018. February 14th makes it Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Okay, that business out of the way. Oh, my God, the government is collapsing. It's not yet. It ought to be. It should have a long time ago, but we're not quite there yet. This is, it's going to be a hell of a day. It's Wednesday, so that's good news because it means we'll have participation from not only Greg Dworkin, but of course Joan McCarter. And I think today may be so crazy we might have to add Armando to the mix again as well. You know, when something really goes wrong, Armando is on the case and can't wait to talk about it. Today already a busy day, of course, with our two regulars coming by, but I had early indications during the evening last night that he might not be able to wait to talk about Michael Cohen. Donald Trump's longtime lawyer, Michael Cohen, has decided to jump back into the Stormy Daniels story and revive it. And I'm not sure why or to what end, what he was thinking in terms of inserting himself back into this thing. I have no idea. So the latest story apparently is that he's fessing up to having paid Stormy Daniels her $130,000, and he thinks it's an important detail that you know that it came out of his pocket and that he wasn't reimbursed by either the campaign or the Trump organization. Now, left at that, of course, it leaves open the possibility that he was reimbursed by some other entity, like, I don't know, Donald Trump, who actually had sex with Stormy Daniels and wanted to cover it up. I don't really know why he thought this would help. I don't know what he thinks he's doing. It doesn't matter to me. We'll talk about it. We'll laugh about it. Armando wants to talk about it because it's actually got some legal implications. Other people talking about different legal implications, like the fact that it would represent pretty much, I mean, if it's done to hush up, if it's hush money for Stormy Daniels. First of all, worst hush money ever. Second of all, it would, of course, be intended to inure to the benefit of the campaign, which did not report it as an in-kind contribution. I don't know how you skip that, but probably the least of the worries. Although it's a pretty good legal worry. Just morally speaking, it's the least of the worries, I suppose. But since Trump doesn't have any moral worries, I guess, we're going to move on to all the other things. Daily Coast Radio, that's this thing, is live now. Bill knows in Portland, Maine, mostly because we do this every day at 9 o'clock, and he's just banking on the fact that we would show up. Did it 5 minutes early, like we were, dependable or something, and so far we have been. Daily Coast Radio is live. Why, yes, Kagro X, me, David Waldman, will be your Valentine for just 3 easy payments of $19.95. And we're getting close to that. Another good day on Patreon yesterday. So thanks again to Armando. That's why we would have Armando on again, to make another appeal for funding. We're getting close to hitting, I don't know, what seems like a first milestone of $1,000 donated monthly to help keep the show going. And we do appreciate it, of course. And thanks to all of our new Patreon patrons. See, that's the reason the whole name thing works. And to those of you who have upped donations as well, thanks again. And it's nice. It's helpful. It helps meet expenses. It helps me pay Scott a little bit when he writes up. He saves our afternoons every day by writing up our summaries of each show. And it's extraordinarily helpful. It allows me to get away from the desk, and I can only undercompensate him for that. Speaking of undercompensating, Greg Dworkin is here to get undercompensated. Hello, and happy Valentine's Day. That one's on the house. Hi, Greg.
Hey, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That'll be $130,000.
I can call Michael. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
I got a guy. He'll pay you.
Well, when you got friends like that.
Right.
Who needs bankers?
Well, I guess. Donald Trump needs bankers desperately, in fact. But Okay. Mobsters and Michael Cohen to the rescue.
Speaking Russian, a plus.
Yes, everyone in Trump Tower does, by the way. Yeah. It's a huge, not just Russian expats, but one time I went through all
it's like being on the boardwalk at Brighton Beach.
Yes, essentially it is. And I think that might be where they're doing their recruiting. Everyone who has worked for Ivanka, curiously enough, has been bilingual in the same second language, Russian. And I don't know that it's their second language. It may be their first. And their anglicized names are cover for their immigration status. But we got stuff to talk about that,
we're
too.
We're fluent in 3 languages. We speak English, Russian, and vigorish.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus whatever kind of cash you have on you.
Exactly. So I'd like to do a kind of a big picture thing today.
All right.
We'll talk about a couple of stories. I mean, I did list a few for you and some nice tweets, but
stories.
The bigger picture is the incompetence of the White House. And how the knives are out for Kelly, and how the only way to replace him is to replace him with another hardline immigration guy, because really that's what's keeping him there, because everybody hates him.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's the big picture.
Yeah, Armando commented on just that, thinking that maybe the slow walking of doing something about Kelly is the hardliners on immigration fear losing one of their biggest advocates in the White House.
Yeah, but they can replace him with Kevin McCarthy.
Oh, is he free?
Well, he doesn't do anything. He's just like works in the House.
Oh, yeah. Well, so maybe. How about Mulvaney? Why not give that job to him too?
Oh, he's already got 17 other jobs.
That's right. He's a hardworking guy.
I don't see. Mulvaney is the kind of guy who's an apparatchik who will simply do what you tell him. I don't think that's good enough for the hardliners.
Yeah.
They want somebody who like foams at the mouth when you mention immigration.
They need to be the tellers.
Yeah.
Don't do what you tell me. We need people who will tell.
We'll tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. I get you.
Right. You don't hunt me. I hunt you. You know, that kind of thing. So here's some fun stuff. Steny Hoyer was asked about Speaker Ryan's vow to only bring up DACA that passes the Hastert rule. And he must have been listening to this show. He said, "What, is Hastert still in prison?" And then he added, "The House shouldn't be following rules created by pedophiles."
Wow. Really?
Yes.
He said it?
He said that.
Wow. Steny Hoyer.
Go Steny.
It's no small thing for Steny.
Right. And of course you and I were alluding to the fact that Michael Cohen paid $130,000 out of his own pocket just because he's friends with Trump to Stormy Daniels to shut her up during the run-up to the election.
Yeah, good job.
If you're a lawyer, you're not supposed to be doing stuff like that. But I gather from Twitter it's better to admit to unethical lawyering than it is to lie to the Federal Elections Commission, which is a crime.
I see. Not that the Federal Elections Commission would have anything to do about it, but okay. If I accept that letter, they could prove in a court of law that I knew it. All right. I get the idea. That sort of lawyering.
So Benji Sarlin on Twitter says, I'm suddenly reevaluating all my friendships on whether they'd pay $130,000 to quiet a definitely for sure totally untrue rumor about me just because we're buds.
Yeah. I think that's a different kind of friendship.
Speaking of different kinds of friendships and speaking of different kinds of money, there's this piece here on the Hill. Kushner has added millions in debt since joining the White House.
Yeah.
So my read on that was, in other words, just another day at the office for the incompetent prince. Remind me of what he is good at.
Accumulating debt.
He's really good at that.
Yeah, usually they get richer.
Now, there's a fascinating tie-in there, which is why I led with that. So Jared Kushner is under criminal investigation.
Yes.
And therefore, because he's under criminal investigation, only has interim clearance.
Yes, sort of.
Of course, he's reading a presidential daily briefing, which is super double secret probation, special secret.
Yes, very cool though. So that's why
I think it's a special secret. You need your top clearance in order to read it, but he's reading it anyway, and that's not supposed to be.
Yeah, well,
So the White House knows that they have this clearance problem because of Kushner.
Yes.
So they can't get rid of everybody else's interim clearance, but just leave Kushner with interim clearance. So they left everybody with interim clearance.
Good, yeah.
Which is a problem because you're not supposed to be looking at this stuff. So anyway they slice it, they were all doing this because of trying to protect Kushner. I still don't understand why.
No,
if you let him loose
reason.
And let Kushner be Kushner, he'll lose billions.
And you could, yeah, I mean, and you could buy those
money.
assets.
I mean, you know, it's family money. You'll lose it all. So I totally don't understand it.
Ivanka could buy it.
Yeah, I had an uncle once who was like that, you know. And
Yeah.
a big businessman, you know, cigar smoking, poker playing businessman. But actually, when you let him loose, he would just tend to go bankrupt all the time.
Huh. Well, that does happen.
But talk the good talk and smoke smelly cigars, and everybody thought that, hey, he's a businessman.
Yeah, only a businessman would smoke something that stinks like that.
Right. So Maggie Haberman reports several White House officials are now prefacing or concluding their sentences in conversations with reporters by making clear they can't swear by the information they've just given. In other words, they're finally honestly telling you that they're lying.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's probably what that means. Among
No,
other
what it
people,
means is
it's
they're talking about the Kelly thing, and they don't know what to believe because they all think Kelly's a liar. And that is really the basis of what's going on here in the White House. I mean, I've seen reports that say everybody hates Kelly. Kelly starts all of his staff meetings by telling the staff how wonderful it is that he's there and lucky for them.
Oh.
You know, he's obviously lying to get Rob Porter to stay there. They all knew about this stuff. The big story in the paper yesterday evening was that the White House was told by the FBI months and months and months ago. And the idea that we just found out about it, so we fired him within 40 minutes, is laughably proven to be wrong. So everybody knows Kelly's lying, and they don't like him. But as Armando suggested, he's been propped up by the anti-immigrationists, and they haven't yet figured out how to get Kevin McCarthy over there. So he's hanging by a thread. And there was another report in the Times today that Kelly's supporters are starting to realize that all the bad stuff coming out of the White House is actually coming from Trump.
Yeah, he's not really a helpful guy.
Wait, what? Trump said that about me? Oh, my goodness. I guess my job is in jeopardy after all.
Maybe, although he's not a very good staff manager. I mean, I know his big line is everything about him is fake. The "you're fired" line is something he does on television, but when it comes to real life, he has to send somebody else to do the firing, and it's usually Kelly.
You know.
Yeah. Oh, right. Omer. She's on another reality show, going on about all the drama in the White House.
It's going to be okay.
It's really amazing.
I mean, the White House, oh my goodness, the White House is in trouble, and no, it's not going to be okay.
We are in trouble.
I'm just telling you, we are in big trouble. So here's a 52-tweet thread, I won't read the whole thing, about a security clearance.
Really? Is it from a Vox person?
No.
Oh, all right. Just a good guess.
It's here's the deal. When did the White House know of serious domestic abuse concerns regarding Rob Porter, the now fallen White House staff secretary?
Fallen.
I love that. It's like, Lucifer.
Yes.
This question is crucial to determining whether those in the White House deliberately ignored security warnings and instead politically decided to retain Porter. As I told Julie Woodruff on NewsHour tonight, there were at least 3 to 4 opportunities where the White House had enough information to realize there were serious problems with Porter obtaining a clearance, and they could have and perhaps should have taken action. And I'll skip all the steps where they document it. And step 52,
okay.
Remember, we're not step 1 through 10 people. We'll skip steps here.
It's there.
52, Trump's Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, testified today that the security clearance process is broken.
Yes.
There are indeed many reforms I could suggest to straighten the system, especially with respect to the appeal process. But the Porter case is not an example of a broken security clearance system. It's an example of a system that was politicized and abused by the White House. So that's really why, one of the 2 reasons, the scandal is not going away. Clearly, there are process issues here, although I think that there's a bigger underlying issue. Okay?
Yes. Okay.
And then Ezra Klein has the explainer that you were wanting.
I knew there was a Vox in here somewhere.
So, as more knives come out for John Kelly, I want to underscore a point I heard repeatedly while reporting out this piece. The reason there's such vicious infighting on Trump's team is Trump.
Yeah. P.S.
Like that, Trump sets it up. There's no way to avoid it. You can't change Kelly for McCarthy and suddenly everything is smooth. That's not how it works. The problem is at the top. And here is the problem as I see it at the top. And that is that when you step back and look at the big picture, that's what I wrote in the Pundit Roundup this morning, The reason the double scandal, spousal abuse and security clearance, is such a big deal is it highlights the incompetence of the principal in the Oval Office, the need for the White House staff to protect him. You can't highlight abuse to Trump as a problem any more than you can highlight Russia probe stories because they involve him, and he doesn't want to hear it. The lack of ability of those serving and the inability to attract truly competent people just makes it all worse. And in the end, the reason that Trump's numbers stay in the 40s, high 30s, low 40s, 38 in Pew just a few days ago, it's higher in polls like the Morning Consult poll. There's one that came out this morning that had him with a mid-40s rating. But somebody looked at the numbers there and said, it's funny because the Morning Consult people basically voted for Trump +7. So if you ask Republicans, they're okay with it. But if you ask the rest of the country, they're very much not okay with it. And even Republicans are not okay with it because this all has to do with Trump's personal characteristics. And if you scratch the surface and get them to answer honestly deep down, even Republicans are not particularly happy with him unless you're the Pepe people. Everybody else is like really uncomfortable with the idea, and we know this in polling, that there's abuse going on in the White House amongst their staff that people are overlooking. Okay, and you can't do that. Mike Gerson has a piece. Among the more revealing moments in the ongoing White House nervous breakdown, this is from the round. It came in Chief of Staff Kelly's initial defense of Staff Secretary Rob Porter. As accusations of domestic abuse against Porter became public, Kelly pronounced him a man of true integrity and honor, and he could have added, just like the president. I've never been in the military, and I have great respect for Kelly's distinguished service, says Gerson, but I suspect that for most people in uniform, that's not what they meant by honor, more like dereliction of duty. CNN, Republicans are growing increasingly concerned by President Donald Trump's inability to quiet the Rob Porter abuse scandal. How could he? It means talking about Roy Moore and his own issues.
Yeah. Not a good spokesperson for dealing with that.
Right.
I mean, go ahead. You've done everything else.
Here's Ariel Edwards-Levy, new HuffPost YouGov poll. Most following Porter's story say abuse allegations should disqualify him from the White House job.
Yeah, I should hope so.
But so the public, just like the public agrees that truth is a good thing, even though they can't agree on what truth is, like you should tell the truth.
Oh, all right.
You could argue about what is the truth, but nobody argues that you should tell the truth or not. Yes, you should. Well, what is it? Well, that we're going to have a whole fake news argument about. But the concept of truth is one of those shared values we still have. Most people following this issue say abuse allegations should disqualify him from the White House job. And if that's true, what does it say about the president?
I don't
Well, they went to that, but they can't. And so the White House is paralyzed by this, and that's why it's a week later and the story hasn't gone away. Here's Washington Post, Kyle Griffin tweeting this. John Kelly is a big fat liar, said one White House official to Washington Post, who demanded anonymity to share a candid opinion. To put it in terms the general would understand, his handling of the Porter scandal amounts to dereliction of duty. That's where I saw that quote from.
Okay.
And so you have a situation where you really cannot separate Trump from this particular abuse scandal. And I'm saying it's going to resonate way more than any policy thing is. Democrats and Republicans argue about policy.
Yes.
Democrats are not going to win elections based on policy. I don't know how many times you have to say this. It didn't happen in 2016 when we had the better policy. It won't happen in 2018, and it won't happen in 2020. It's a necessary but not sufficient thing to have decent policy. You also have to sell something else. Usually it's the candidate.
Yeah.
You don't trust or like the candidate, you don't vote for them even if you like their policy for the most part. Yes, Republicans are tribal. Democrats less so. Indies don't care. You can't win on just your tribe alone. And so that's why it's so fascinating to see Trump go again and again and again to the well to try to buff up his base with policies that are pretty unpopular. That's relevant. We're discussing about immigration and DACA because he doesn't have anything else. He's not going to get back Democrats ever. He's losing independents. He's losing suburban women. He's in pretty bad shape in terms of electoral results in the next two elections. And his personal characteristics are now on display for a week, which is not helping anybody. It's certainly not helping Republicans. So if you want to make the argument, which is a good argument and a true argument, that our best issue as Democrats is health care, and we should concentrate on that come 2018, that's fine. But the thing that's driving all of this, the thing that's driving the upset win in Florida that just happened the other day, and all the other wins that the Democrats have had in the interim, is Trump.
Yeah,
and
well,
when everybody says, well, you need something else besides Trump. Actually, in a midterm, no, you don't.
Well, that's true. In a midterm, things are a little bit different. I will also say, I mean, the thing that comes to mind in reminding us of at least what used to be conventional wisdom is, well, the idea that, okay, well, maybe the policy brass tacks aren't really what matters when it comes to pulling the lever or filling in the oval or punching the chad, whatever you happen to be doing. But, of course, that was sort of an assumption or a finding that came out of an era in which you really had a contest still as between two kind of regular parties that both had policy proposals, most of which were, some were more workable than others, but they were dressed up as though they were real and competing proposals. And I don't think we necessarily even have that anymore. But we haven't gotten used to it and don't know how to react to it either. So we're still in the old mode.
So DACA and immigration, Democrats can't really accept Trump's ridiculous immigration proposals. Trump wants to hold DACA recipients hostage. It's hard to see politically how that ends well for anybody. The Democrats can't close the government down over DACA, and they're in the minority in both houses and don't have the White House, so there's very little affirmative policy that one can push. You can try to block stuff as best you can, but it's very hard to push an affirmative policy when you're in the minority. So you might be able to wring some concessions to say, okay, leave things as is and we'll deal with it down the road, like they do with CRs. That's about the best Democrats are going to be able to do. Right now, the Republicans are trying to do some public relations with having a discussion in the Senate, which is a, quote, open discussion. But, everything in Washington is planned, and it's all kabuki, so I'm not sure where any of that's going. But the fact of the matter is that as important as an issue as it is, because Democrats can't sell out DACA recipients, healthcare still remains the major issue for Democrats that resonates with the public. And we're not even talking about that at the moment.
No, true, not much. I don't know what to recommend.
Well, the reason is the White House is engulfed with scandal, and so we're talking about White House scandal. And for Democrats, that's a win-win.
I mean, as opposed to as between when you're trying to focus on policy, focusing or choosing as between healthcare and DACA. I couldn't tell you which one would work best in a situation where policy is meaningless. I don't know.
Well, we know that 2 out of 3 people do not want the government to shut down over DACA. And we do know that the Affordable Care Act is becoming more and more popular, and the Republicans keep trying to sabotage it.
Okay, well, there's an argument.
Right? So both of those things are, on the table, and you have to work with that.
I guess so. I mean, I guess to the extent that you believe you need to cling to, a policy platform. And I don't know, I couldn't point to anything objective and say, other than, gosh, it feels like nothing matters anymore, to argue against it. So, okay, choose one, pick one or the other. And I don't mind the shifting focus. I don't know if it's, well, since you're not going to win any contest over the closure of the government, likely.
Right. So, you're not going to win that. So it's okay to focus on White House scandals as well.
Okay.
Under these circumstances. Nate Silver has a nice little chart he put up. When thinking about the midterms at this early stage, you should think about a broad constellation of indicators, like special elections, very bad for the GOP. Generic ballot, bad for the GOP, improving, but still bad. Depends which poll you look at. But it's basically a +6, +7, and that may change. Trump approval. Oh, by the way, a lot of incumbent polling looks better in January than it does the rest of the year. You have the State of the Union, pomp circumstance, so on and so forth, and then it goes back down to where it was. So that's fairly traditional. So I wouldn't make too much of what's going on in January and early February. Look next month. Trump approval, very bad for GOP, improving, but only modestly. Economy, good for GOP, but mixed. As a matter of fact, new reports today say consumer price index is up, manufacturing is down, and Dow futures are down 500. So they're about to open the market, and we'll see how that goes. But it's not going to be a good day on Wall Street, at least not a good morning. Recruitment and retirements, very bad for GOP. Fundraising, bad for GOP. Electoral history, bad for GOP because the president's party almost always does badly in midterms. News environment, bad for GOP, unpredictable, maybe improving for them. Voter enthusiasm, very bad for GOP, hard to say, probably improving after Florida, I'm not sure. Gerrymandering and districting is the only thing that's very good for the GOP, but that's worsening because of recent court decisions, including in Pennsylvania, for example. So Nate concludes it's super easy to cherry pick almost any narrative you want from that. Well, but overall, the GOP's position is bad. It probably improved at the margin for a couple of months ago, and that's what the polling says. But improving at the margin from bad leaves you with bad.
Yeah, well, yes, but marginally better. Bad.
Marginally better, but still bad. You know, that's like saying, oh, my God, Trump's average went from 38 to 41.
And it did.
It did. But is that popular? No. Is that going to help you in the midterms? No.
It's the largest increase in history.
You know, these are facts. You can't argue facts. All you people trying to ignore the facts because the facts are right there in front of you. You went up 3 points. Well, yeah, you can easily go down 3 points, and actually his numbers are more on the downswing than the upswing right now.
Okay. Well, I like the historical note. That's also helpful of January and the upcoming State of the Union, and I guess ordinarily the budget being issued.
A wonderful piece he put up about this on a tweet, and he looked at the margin now, and like
got to get
all
out
the
for a break. But...
all the margins ever put together, and showed that it's following the same thing, only worse.
Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching Kagro X or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Roots Radio, and we've been chatting through the break on looking at graphs and pictograms.
Things you can't do on the radio,
Yeah, so I trust me when I tell you the lines are all over the place and in different colors.
Yes, and also there's axes.
Yes, right.
There's
2,
y-axis,
I think, and this one.
There's x-axis. There's axis of evil. There's
current axes, x-axes, future axes, all
there's axes murderers. There's all sorts of things all over.
Yeah, right. Luckily, we didn't get that far with Rob Porter, but you
never know.
I don't know who's in his background. Yeah, I did see not only all the bad optics, including the black eye, which is sort of punish in a way. Pictures of eyes as optics is a weird thing. Aside from all of the nonsense about whether or not they are clearing their people, etc., we also had another round of weirdness of offering up different explanations for the black eye again. Yesterday we were back to she fell down. She walked into a door. All my wives are falling down constantly, apparently. And
see, but that's the thing. If you're lying.
Yes.
Then it's just not going to work out for you because you just move from one to the other, and then hopefully Fox News will cover Uranium One, and that they won't even be talking about this.
Maybe, I don't know. I guess I think that has worked for them before somehow, but I don't know. By the way,
it's not working.
This idea of McCarthy moving to the White House, I'm not seeing that in many places. Where did that idea come from? Do you know?
Gabe Sherman.
Gabe Sherman. Okay. sounds.
I do know. I didn't make it up. I know.
Well, I didn't think you did. I figured I'd find out where it came from. But because I mean, that's just a strange. First of all, I haven't followed McCarthy's position on anything ever.
Don't forget, he was the guy that when they were trying to debate immigration the first time with Schumer and stuff, they sent McCarthy over there as a minder to make sure that it didn't go in the wrong direction. You remember that?
Yes, I do. Of course, I also remember him saying, "Hey, everybody, I think the Russians are paying Trump," and everybody saying, "Shh, shh, shh, shh," and now him saying, "All right, maybe I'll be his chief of staff."
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, that doesn't follow for me, but you do you. I guess.
Okay, so here's the tweet. It's from Gabe Sherman 2 hours ago. Also seems to be a strong push by some close to Trump to make Kevin McCarthy chief of staff.
Go ahead. Why not? I wonder. I mean, I don't know what his district is like. I don't want to touch the political implications of it. I find it puzzling. Right? Caught on tape saying, "I think the Russians are paying him," and now, hey, everybody, why don't you leak to the press that it would be good if I took over as chief of staff?
The other guy.
I don't know.
The other guy who's in the mix.
Yes.
Is Gary Cohn.
Economic advisor.
Economic advisor, globalist.
Boy,
right?
Well, okay, they got to have one of those.
Here's the problem. You have to step back and look at the big picture. They don't have very many competent people who work in the White House.
That is
true. If you're competent, you want to have nothing to do with these folks. Yeah. And then everything that's happened by having incompetent people there makes things worse. So now it's really hard to get competent people to go in there.
Are they thinking about maybe not people? Could they try that? Animals or robots?
Alexa. That's what you need.
That's it.
Alexa,
I couldn't find
my immigration
anything
problem and get me a Diet Coke.
I can't actually get you the Coke, but I can give you. Well,
you'll
get a stock quote.
Immigration problem either, but
that's true. But here's stock quotes on Coca-Cola Corporation.
Exactly.
Well, they need to find some kind of alternative.
Alexa, this is a serious problem. Why do you keep bringing up Siri?
That's right. Oh, he could play them off one against the other. He'd tell Alexa he's seeing Siri.
Exactly. So, but it's interesting dynamics there.
And Michael Cohen gives Apple $130,000. This is very good. This works.
The thing is that Gary Cohn is a Kushner ally.
Yeah.
So that's a huge plus.
So that's who's pushing it. Okay.
Yes.
So someone else, I don't know who.
And the anti-immigrants, as Amanda pointed out, are pushing Kelly out only if they get somebody as good in their place, and that's where McCarthy comes from. So it's going to be really interesting to see the jockeying here and see what happens, but all of it points to the fact that Kelly's days are numbered.
Okay. Well, I hope it happens soon. It'll be very interesting to see which direction they choose to go in, and I guess I hope they go with Gary Cohn, and then there's a civil war in the White House, and then the trapdoor opens and they fall into the shark pit.
Right. So if I had to guess, I would say Cohen over McCarthy because he's already there. And if he's already there, you don't have to go through any,
that is true.
Process stuff.
Yeah, not too much involved, I don't think, in chief of staff, although it will be fun. I imagine, I don't know. I keep hoping we have like a robust, press corps, and they'll say, well, if Kelly's forced out on... In part over security clearances, then we're going to have to watch real closely, like, does the new guy get a security clearance or not?
Well, the thing is, you have to look at Gary Cohn as a win for the pro-immigration forces.
Yes.
And McCarthy would be a win for the anti-immigration forces.
Yeah.
So Armando suggests that McCarthy would be the better bet in that particular regard. But Cohen's far more competent than, by the way, there's some major issues over there. So, all of it, again, whichever one, it means Kelly's out.
Yeah, well, hopefully sooner rather than later. McCarthy's not that competent. All right, well, man, I don't know.
Well, Armando's making the point that he'd be a yes man, which is what Trump wants.
Yeah, although, I mean, so many people around him were...
maybe Mulvaney type.
Yeah, maybe they'll do it that way just because there was a lot of hope placed in Kelly not being that, and that he was going to run the tight ship and he was going to be the adult in the room, and that didn't work out. So I suppose that argument is deflated. Although,
Now, remind us all why Kevin McCarthy didn't move up in the ranks when he had the opportunity a year or so ago.
you know what? I don't remember.
Wasn't it over an affair or a possible affair?
Was it? That could be. I don't know if is that ringing the bell.
Because that would make him that's a plus for this White House.
Yes, that's true.
It would make him totally qualified.
I guess. Yeah. Well, it would make him one of the gang anyway, as long as he hasn't hit anybody over it.
So I don't have any other names that threw out there. It's Mulvaney, it's McCarthy, it's Cohen, and they're jockeying. And Mulvaney's name isn't coming up as much. It's just that he's already done everything.
It seriously comes up in some places?
I think Mulvaney keeps moving from cabinet position to cabinet position.
Yeah.
As they try to fix messes.
Yeah. Oh, Armando.
So he's busy. So
Armando has sent us a note. Yes, you're right. The memory of McCarthy having an affair with Renee Elmers, who was another member of Congress. Is she gone now?
Oh, so
I think so.
He's
she was
qualified,
districted out.
right?
Yeah,
he knows all about
right.
affairs. He knows all about rather than disqualifying, which it was at the time. It's qualifying now because Trump likes people around him who really understands the issues.
Yeah, that's right. I can sympathize.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Elmers. Yes, I think she's out now. And was Elmers the one who left the AR-15 out in her garage and got it stolen? I think so.
I don't know.
Her
There's
from
so many
guns.
people that do that. It's it's really hard to keep track.
Well, right, I know, but only one of them was.
Was that the
one
with the
Congress.
gun at the air? No, that was somebody else. Was
Right,
that the one
that's
with
Gordon.
the AR-15? No, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, I think Elmers was the one that left she had a gun safe in the garage. She left the garage door open and a gun, the AR-15 leaning against it. It's a $600, $700, $800 gun. Somebody just walked in and snatched it because gun safety. But okay, just another story.
Right. And then one last thing, let me throw out there, and this is kind of interest. We talked a little bit about Brexit the other day. I feel like we should do some international stuff. So today's international stuff is Israel. Israeli police recommend the Attorney General indict Netanyahu on 2 cases of alleged bribery.
Their Attorney General.
Yeah, but the person who would do that, of course, is appointed by Netanyahu, so I'm not at all sure that that would happen. But a really interesting piece here by Dave Rothkopf in Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Netanyahu and Trump, illegals and infiltrators, don't threaten us ethno-nationalists like you do. Just making the point that they're really tied together. They're very similar personalities in the two countries. And even points out there's a small, this is something Josh Krashour would do. There's a small school of contrarian pundits who seem to be devoted to playing up the differences, but actually they're the same.
Oh.
And it's a really nice article for those who want to look at the international thing. It's, necessarily not the major interest of our listeners, but I like to have this kind of broad balance of looking at things.
I think there's a lot of people interested in that, and because it's so, because of the parallels, it makes for a fun bit of news.
Right. I don't know if Armando has time to come on and talk about the palace intrigue, the Kremlin watching that's going on around the White House. It'd be interesting if he could, but I'm going to have to scoot out and leave, get back to work. We got a sheen of ice here on the road, and I want to give myself a little extra time to get to where we need to get to.
All right.
But in the meantime, this is we have the Pundit Roundup today. If you want to go look at that, I left you with some other stories. And this is Greg Dworkin speaking with my very good friend David Waldman, and at least chatting over the internet with Armando. The three of us go back a long way. We like talking to each other about politics and other things, which is why this show exists. Thanks so much for listening, folks. And I'll be back tomorrow, and we'll see if we have a new chief of staff by then.
Right. Or if there's a sheen of ice on the old one.
Yeah.
Could be. All right. Thanks very much, Greg. Be careful out there. Go slow, and we'll look forward to hearing from you tomorrow about the harrowing drive.
Go slow. That's my motto. Take care.
Okay. You do the same, and let's see what's up here. What are you tweeting at me now here? Armando's not tweeting. He's using the back channels of Skype here, and I saw. He's what did you just send me here? He's like D.C. Bureau of McClatchy has a story here. How the late Fred Barron, a Dallas attorney, spent over $200,000. Okay. Now I see where you're going. And then you wrote Barron is like Cohen, and I'm like Baron Cohen. Are you typing me something about Borat, Sacha Baron? What's going on here? I see. Now I see the parallel you're trying to draw. And this is what you were talking about, calling in about yesterday. And you know what? Why don't you give us a call, and we'll see if we can't sneak you in before the top of the hour break, and then we'll open the doors. Well, the doors are always open for Joan. Joan could try even calling in at the same time. But, the story you're tweeting me, of course, is texting me, is has got to do with the $130,000 payment made allegedly now by Michael Cohen, not Sacha Baron Cohen. But well, all right. Why don't I just bring in, because the music is playing, and you'll make the connection for us. I know you were hinting at this last night. Good morning, Armando. How are you?
Yeah, look, I'm glad I get in, and then of course Joan can get to the actual matters that matter. Like,
I think she wants to talk about this too. But all right, yep.
Oh, she should have her fun too. It can't be all, congressional nonsense.
Right.
But the story I just sent you is just a recap of what John Edwards' lawyer did, which was pay his mistress money,
Edwards, yes,
to keep her quiet. And according to the prosecutors who prosecuted John Edwards, to keep her quiet to protect his political campaign. Uh-huh. And they argued that it was a political contribution to John Edwards that was illegal, and that they conspired and worked together to do this to benefit the campaign, making it a campaign contribution. It exceeded the limits. It wasn't reported, et cetera, et cetera. Ergo, it was a crime. It was various crimes. 6 crimes, in fact, is what he was charged with. It went to a jury. And I think people misunderstand that because the jury did not convict John Edwards, that means that the underlying fact pattern cannot constitute a crime. John Edwards had the very able Abby Lowell as his lawyer, who convinced enough to either hang on counts or to acquit on counts, that said it was a personal contribution, not political contribution.
Now, is Abby Lowell still available?
Well, Abby Lowell keeps winning cases for people charged with things, including your old boss, Mr. Menendez, who now is scot-free. And by the way, what happens there? That's a conversation for another day.
Yes.
He's not resigning. I can tell you that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But let's stick to this story, because there's a couple of other twists here that make Michael Cohen's position even more precarious.
By the way, Abby Lowell, I think, currently represents Jared Kushner.
He does represent Jared Kushner. That is correct. He is the lawyer for Jared Kushner.
So,
that's absolutely true.
What are you going to do?
He's got a lot of work.
Sure.
Jared Kushner, who just increased his personal debt load in the last year by millions of dollars.
Huge increase. It's the biggest increase in history, and increases are good.
I don't know what's going on with Jared Kushner, man. And at some point, someone's going to wonder about his security clearance. One of the factors that the FBI looks at for clearances is, do you have enormous debt?
And I guess he figured,
just as if you're just a general person going for a government job that requires clearance, if you have really sky-high debt, personal debt, that's a super black mark against you.
Yeah,
they really frown on that.
Because somebody could come in and say, I'll pay your debt if you do my bidding. And you will do it because
you are financially vulnerable is the idea.
Right, and he is.
And Jared Kushner is the very poster of being financially vulnerable, because we're not even talking about his personal debt. He's also got personal guarantees, particularly the one for the 666 building on Fifth Avenue, that, frankly, he's the most financially exposed person in the government, even more so than Trump at this point, who's probably in decent financial shape at this point. He's made enough money through his scams that he's probably all right. Jared, on the other hand, is not.
Yeah.
Anyway, I get sidetracked.
Although it's a big issue. I mean, it's a big overarching issue in the sense that, here we are, the country we live in, the privileges we deal with. Like, he's the richest guy. You're so rich. How much money do you have? I have negative $500 million. Hey,
That's
I'm richer than you. What do you know?
Yeah, no, I mean that's what's the old saying about when you owe the bank a little bit, they own you. When
Yes.
you owe the bank a lot, you own them. But we'll see.
Right.
Michael Cohen's problem, to get back to what I'm saying, which makes him different in some respects from Fred Barron. Fred Barron wasn't his attorney, but Michael Cohen is more than Trump's attorney. This is where people are wrong. He's not in private practice. Michael Cohen is an in-house attorney for the Trump organization. He's a vice president of the Trump organization.
Yes. Now, his status as attorney has fluctuated, although I don't know that one invalidates the other. But he spent most of his career as Trump organization attorney and not Trump's personal attorney. But he now lists himself as Trump's personal attorney.
Well, does that mean he no longer has an employment at Trump organization? That would be news to me.
I don't know. That doesn't necessarily follow. It's just that's how he now describes himself. He may be both, which is problematic in a different way.
It is problematic in a different way, but you can get around it with waivers. But the idea still is that if he's salary from the Trump organization, I understand that. Certainly, at the time he was making these payments, he was an attorney for the Trump organization.
Yeah, I think so.
And what happens there, in my view, is that there's a concept called respondent superior. That is, your employee, you respond for the actions of your employee. You're responsible. He acts in ways that you are responsible for. So I think there's a plausible argument that if I have my facts correct, that a prosecutor could argue that whatever Michael Cohen did with knowledge of Donald Trump, remember, all Michael Cohen said was he wasn't paid. He paid it out of his own pocket, is what he says, right?
Yes.
But he doesn't say that Donald Trump didn't know he was doing this.
That's true also.
The reality is Michael Cohen probably bragged to Donald Trump that he did.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I took care of it.
But, Michael Cohen will, and here's the real conundrum for Michael Cohen. If he did it personally, and he's reporting that he did it personally, Donald Trump, he can't claim attorney-client privilege on that communication unless he's saying that he did it while acting. He's reporting to his client about what he did for him.
Oh, yes, that's
which
true.
Makes it something he did for Trump. It's a real conundrum. Michael Cohen has not thought this through, and I guess documents were coming out that this was going to be revealed, is why he went on the record and said it, because there's no plausible, smart reason for him to have admitted that he paid this and actually settled on a story for what he was going to say. It was something he did not, at least from what I can tell, there was nothing compelling him to come clean on this. I could be wrong. Maybe there's some other reason why it was important to say this now. But he's frankly put out a story that puts him in tremendous jeopardy personally, it seems to me. Because suppose he never told Trump and he just did it himself. He made an illegal campaign contribution. Who did he conspire with? He conspired with Stormy Daniels, as a matter of fact, and Stormy Daniels' attorney to violate federal campaign finance laws. That's a crime.
Bad.
I think it, frankly, screams for a second special prosecutor.
Maybe that's why he did it. He knew that would be the result, and that sounds so absurd to most people that I got no idea why he did it.
It's not absurd in this sense, particularly if it's Cohen. You know how many special prosecutors, independent counsels at the time there were in the Clinton administration? I think there were 5 or 6 different ones.
Is that right?
Investigating various matters. The SB one was one. There were a few others I don't recall, but the one comes to mind. And certainly you can have you appoint a special counsel whenever there's a situation where the Department of Justice can't, without conflict, investigate. Investigating the president's personal attorney, as he's now saying, is conflictual. It creates a conflict, particularly when it relates to campaign matters, because the attorney general himself was a member of the Trump campaign, and that's why he recused himself in the Russia matters. So a special counsel is absolutely appropriate here, it seems to me, as nobody can end justice now or who will be in the future. The entire department, it seems to me, is tainted in an investigation of this matter. So it seems to me that really requires the naming of a special prosecutor. It's fascinating, and if you ever want to get back into it, you should read the indictment of John Edwards, change the names. Well, in the indictment, Fred Barron is, I believe, person C, not named, but if you get it, you'll see that who it is, and you could replace the names Edwards for Trump, and you could replace person C in your mind from Fred Barron to Michael Cohen, and it's pretty much the same set of facts.
Yeah. That's something. Ignore all of that. MAGA. Nothing matters. Yeah.
Yes.
I guess.
Now, there is one little twist that I'll try to wrap up before Joan comes on. There's one little twist here that in between the Edwards, when was Citizens United decided? 2012, right?
Offhand, I couldn't tell you, but I'll check it.
Maybe 2011.
I will check it.
And this could be important because Citizens United, of course, said that you can't restrict the political expenditures of individuals. Right?
All right. Yep. Citizens United.
So if Cohen can argue this is an independent expenditure, Citizens United might block a criminal prosecution.
2010.
And that might be what he had in mind.
Okay. Maybe. 2010, how does that...
No, that doesn't change it then, because John Edwards was indicted in 2011.
All right.
So that's an
maybe they just missed
point.
their opportunity to argue that it was an independent expenditure.
We'd have to look at the briefs and see if Abby Lowell made any type of argument like that. It's an interesting point. So Shaun White's being sued for something. That sounds bad. But anyway, that's just me looking at the TV, which always has something to look at. I'm like Trump. I'm on executive time.
Oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. Yes.
Yeah, but it really calls out for not a congressional investigation. It calls, though, I guess you could have one if you wanted to.
Why?
But to me, it calls for a criminal investigation. There's things to look at here, and I think that the prima facie there is a violation here. And I think in many ways, the Trump-Cohen situation has much more pitfalls in that Cohen, as I said, I believe was an employee of the Trump organization when he was doing these things. So there is this question of whether his actions will be attributable to the Trump organization, i.e. then Donald J. Trump. So we'll see what happens, but it strikes me as something that merits significant investigation. It always did, but now it screams for it because the man is now on the record saying he did make the payments. And, of course, the strangest part of the argument that he made is that this doesn't belie the fact that there never was an affair. He said sometimes you pay people to not say things that are false. I've actually never heard that before in my life, and certainly for a guy like Donald Trump, who's threatened to sue everybody that says things that are false, as opposed to just paying them to stop saying false things, according to him, it seems absurd. But so I think that if the idea is that Michael Cohen did this on his own without consulting anybody, that seems unlikely. To the degree that he spoke with Trump about it, I think he probably did, but I'm sure they'll both lie about it or claim privilege on it. Again, though, I do think that a privilege claim makes the situation worse, not better for Trump. So if they think it through, they won't claim privilege. They'll just deny that it was ever discussed. So it seems to me that that's frankly something that requires a referral. Now, here's a question I have. The Lindsey Graham and Charles Grassley sent a letter to the FBI, what they called a criminal referral. Though I didn't know Congress could make criminal referrals, but apparently they can, or individual members of Congress. I don't think it was put to a vote in the committee, so it's presumably their individual acts as senators. Can a Democratic congressperson send a letter to the Department of Justice and say this needs to be investigated, and say I made a criminal referral?
I guess so. I guess anybody can write
anybody can write a letter, right?
You can do it if you want.
Well, I think Crew had sent a letter to the FEC. I think it's beyond the FEC, and who cares about the FEC anyway? What are they going to do? Fine them $500,000? I mean, they'll have a fundraiser and pay it off.
Stormy Daniels will pay it.
Right. So those are, I believe, real issues that arise here in discussing the new revelations of the Michael Cohen situation, and I do think that the legal aspect of this is much more serious than the coverage you're getting on it. I understand the political aspect of it, and that should matter, but at this point, Trump having an affair, this is the whole point. If Trump wasn't running for office, and this is why I don't understand Michael Cohen's argument that this was somehow...
we got to take our break, Armando. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Everybody excited to talk all the way through the breaks here today. We really are missing our music. Not that the music was a terrific cue all the time and telling people exactly what was going on, but it helped a little bit. Anyway, suffice to say that Michael Cohen now puts Donald Trump pretty much in exactly John Edwards' shoes, and the only escape that I see available for them is saying, well, sure, John Edwards was a huge lying criminal, and Donald Trump is awesome and is not any of those things. And if he is, it doesn't matter. And then we all go our separate ways because, like I said, YOLO, nothing matters. Here's another thing that doesn't matter. You may have seen this if you were visiting over at Daily Kos yesterday in a highly recommended diary in the over on our right-hand column by Subir, who points out quite correctly that there are a number of very interesting articles also in circulation, some of which I independently had put aside in Pocket to try and bring up, but he I guess summarizes 2 or 3 of them pretty well. One I had put aside. There's the Forbes magazine article that not only did Subir, I think, refer to this one. Oh no, I'm sorry. Has he got a different scandal out in plain sight? Oh, okay. He refers also to the Forbes article. It all begins here at Forbes. So Subir has written about it, as has Mark Sumner, and I'm trying on the fly to decide where to begin with all of this, because so often, Forbes goes into great detail, and that's always helpful. But then again, if we're getting ready for Jones' visit, do I want to go to the summaries provided elsewhere? Let me take a look. I'll open up all the articles, and we'll take a quick scan of them and see which one fits in our available space the best and gives us the best look at what's going on. I'll tell you what. You know what? The Forbes piece appears to be a bit of a long read. So let's head back over to Daily Kos and get to the meat of these things. Mark Sumner's piece, I noticed because, of course, it ran under the headline of, in case you forgot, Donald Trump never stopped violating the emoluments clause. And we're always all about the emoluments clause here. And Subir's diary is titled Trump. This gets right to one of the specifics of the violations of the emoluments clause. Trump lobbied the Georgian prime minister for a real estate deal during an Oval Office meeting. This gets right to the heart of things, but let me, I guess I'll start with the broader overview that Mark gives of what's happening in Forbes. Donald Trump, he writes, may believe that it's impossible for him to have a conflict of interest. Remember, that's his stance on all these things. But that doesn't make those conflicts any less real or less profitable. And as Forbes points out, and I should probably at some point tell you what the name of the Forbes article is. It ran under the headline, Trump's biggest potential conflict of interest is hiding in plain sight. It's hard to know which of those, which of the many conflicts is the biggest, but it's all hiding in plain sight in many ways because, well, one, a lot of them happen right in Trump Tower. And two, a lot of them carry the Trump name stamped right on it, so you know when you look at it, what corruption hides beneath this name and this building or that building. Stan Alexander was the name of the Forbes writer that put this piece together that inspired Mark and Subir to write on it. Mark, as I said, has written, as Forbes points out, one of the biggest is also the most obvious, that is the emoluments clause violations. Trump Tower, here quoting from the Forbes piece, officially lists the tenant as the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China. But make no mistake who's paying the rent. You know how things work in China. The Chinese government, which owns a majority of the company. That's the way things work in China. So the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China is owned in majority part by the Chinese government. So if they rent space, as they do, and a big space at that, in Trump Tower, yes, the Chinese government is paying Donald Trump. That's bad, and it's one of the reasons we have the emoluments clause. But no one cares that we have the emoluments clause, so LOL, YOLO, nothing matters anymore. So, Forbes continues here. While the landlord is technically the Trump organization, oh, I see. So it's not Donald Trump, it's the Trump organization. Yeah, okay, that makes a big difference. Make no mistake, who's cashing those millions? The President of the United States. So it's not China paying Trump, it's the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, owned by the Chinese government, paying the Trump organization, owned by Donald Trump. Totally different. Yeah, okay. So, but is it really? Isn't it totally different? After all, as Forbes notes, Donald Trump has placed the day-to-day management of the Trump organization with his sons, but retains 100% ownership. I'm not managing it, I'm just taking the money. Therefore, I'm not taking the money. Yes, good logic. I don't know, it appears to be working. Is the man in violation of the emoluments clause? Yes. Is the emoluments clause in the Constitution? Yes. Is it our bedrock governing document? Yes. Is he still the president? Yes. Are we mad about it? Yes. Are we right to be mad about it? Yes. Are we correct in accusing him of violating the Constitution? Yes. But he's still the president? That's what they say. I don't know why, but they do say it. Anyway, Mark continues. That's a $2 million a year pipeline from Donald's buddy, Xi Jinping, who loved his chocolate cake, his beautiful chocolate cake, right? And who he's got a great relationship with, probably treated me better than anyone in the history of China. And he may have a point here, because almost no one has ever gone to China and just collected a $2 million check annually for having gone there. Except, of course, well, okay, the emperors, who are a part of the history of China. But anyway, $2 million a year from Xi Jinping to Donald Trump. It's enough to vault any Entenmann's thawed in the bowels of Mar-a-Lago, the chocolate cake, I guess, into the ranks of the best cake ever. It's also blatantly and directly in violation of the Constitution. Big deal. It's a conflict of interest unprecedented in American history. This probably also coming from the Forbes piece, but hardly unanticipated. The Founding Fathers specifically built this contingency into the Constitution through the Emoluments Clause, which prohibits U.S. officials from accepting gifts, titles, or emoluments from foreign governments. But, here's what they didn't count on. What if everyone in America doesn't know what emoluments means? Huh? You didn't think of that, did you? What if over the ensuing 200 years we never used the term emoluments, probably because nobody ever violates the clause, and along the way we forget. What do you mean, emoluments? Is that another word for bacon? I don't understand it. What are you talking about? He's not eating bacon as far as I can tell. I don't doubt that he's eating a lot of it, but I've never seen it, and so therefore, what if it means, lean fish? He's definitely not eating that. Yogurt. I don't know. Who knows what emoluments means? They did not count on this contingency. Sure, Mark says, foreign leaders may name drop the Trump Hotel in D.C. and compliment Trump on the horrible and overpriced cocktails, but even the biggest suite in the place isn't welding that direct. What? Isn't welding that direct to the bank account conflict like Trump's real estate rentals. And here he goes to the Chinese bank issue. The real money in the Trump empire, says Forbes, comes from commercial tenants like the Chinese bank. Forbes estimates these tenants pay a collective $175 million a year or so to the president, and they do so anonymously. That sounds like, bad stuff. It is. It's a direct violation of the Emoluments Clause, but hey, LOL, yellow, nothing matters. Real estate gets legal exceptions that no other industry enjoys, Mark reminds us, and Trump is enjoying them all. Federal laws, I think we're back to Forbes here, drafted without envisioning a real estate billionaire as president, require Trump to publicly disclose the shell companies he owns, but not the hundreds of businesses pouring money into them, or even the extent of the money involved. Do you own all these LLCs? Yes, I do. How much money are they taking in? That I don't have to tell you. That seems like a huge hole in the law. Even the 100 million plus arriving in Trump's own personal account every year from unknown sources, squatting in buildings blazoned with his name, is far from the full accounting. And if you think about it, every one of these Trump buildings is now it's like a remote bribery drop-off point, like UPS collection boxes or FedEx drop-off or, whatever, or mailboxes, etc. Put bribes here. How can I tell? It says Trump on it. All right, excellent. We'll put our money here. Again, even the hundreds of millions of dollars arriving in Trump's own personal account every year from unknown sources, squatting in buildings blazoned with his name, is far from the full accounting. In addition to where the money comes from to rent those units, the source of the funds to build them in the first place came through a series of foreign sources that are not completely mysterious. And here, back to Mark's own writing elsewhere on Daily Kos, the money to build these projects flowed almost entirely from Russian sources. Even his kids told us that. In other words, after his business crashed, Trump was floated and made to appear to operate a successful business enterprise through the infusion of hundreds of millions of dollars in cash from dark Russian sources. Russian sources paid to build Trump's buildings. Now he's sitting on a yearly income that's almost entirely based on the money he collects from renting out space in those buildings. Most of that money comes from sources that we can't see. But what we can see demonstrates that Trump's conflict of interest is huge, as he might say, and goes well beyond just foreign interests. Back to Forbes. Take any hot-button issue of the past year, and there's a good chance Trump's tenants lobbied the federal government on it, either in support of or in opposition to the administration's position. Nutritional supplements giant GNC, which rents retail space from the president in New York City, advocated on healthcare reform. Nike, which pays an estimated $13 million in annual rent to Trump, spoke up on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So long as Trump directly and personally pockets every dollar coming from his buildings, and he is yet to surrender so much as 1% of his ownership, there's not a single issue on which he doesn't have a personal interest and not a single issue on which his actions should not be suspect. And of course, Donald Trump is in massive breach of the Emoluments Clause. Not that anyone seems to be interested in doing anything about it. So the president remains in business with the world's two most populous countries. Even if he tries to avoid a bias, there's a clear feeling in the capital and foreign capitals that currying favor with his business can't hurt. It's a global perception problem at best. He does not forget his friends, says Emin Agalarov, you remember him, who helped broker the infamous Russia campaign meeting in Trump Tower, according to Donald Trump Jr. When President Trump announced a travel ban from 7 Muslim-majority countries, it was hard to miss that the ban excluded Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Azerbaijan, and the United Arab Emirates, all places where he had previously pursued business deals. Now that doesn't even mention the one item that Subir highlights, the visit from the Georgian Prime Minister. This also mined from the Forbes piece. He says, buried in a long Forbes magazine article, I told you it was long, about Trump's various conflicts of interest is this tidbit. In May, the Prime Minister of Georgia made a visit to the White House where, according to 2 of Trump's former business partners, the president asked about his old project in the former Soviet Republic. That would be Georgia, in case you thought it was the state of Georgia. Yes, we're still in the habit of referring to them as former Soviet republics. I think we've all gotten used to that by now. Can I just hold my old ring one more time? Tell me more about my project there and what's going on with that. So President Trump, while in the Oval Office, while representing the United States, pressed a foreign head of state about a personal business deal. That is about as clear a conflict of interest as you could imagine, Subir writes. Keep in mind, Trump is supposed to have recused himself from all such business dealings and leaving them up to his sons. The New Yorker reported on this Georgian deal extensively last August, and the cast of characters involved is colorful. They include a former chairman of a Kazakh bank who is accused of embezzling several $1 billion from that bank. The family of Kazakh dictator, Nursultan Nazarbayev is involved, and as is their ultimate political patron, of course, Vladimir Putin. New Yorker had this to say on it. One foreign deal, a stalled 2011 plan to build a Trump Tower in Batumi, the city on the Black Sea in the Republic of Georgia, has not received much journalistic attention, but the deal, for which Trump was reportedly paid $1 million, $1 million, involved, let's say, unorthodox financial practices that several experts described to me, the writer of the New Yorker piece. I don't have the piece open. I can't tell you who that is, but you can click through and see. Described to me as red flags for bank fraud and money laundering. We have been here before, people. Moreover, it intertwined his company with a Kazakh oligarch who has direct links to Russia's president, Vladimir Putin. As a result, Putin and his security services have access to information that could put them in a position to, you'll never believe it, blackmail Trump. Yeah, that's why we have an emoluments clause. Of course, the con men who populate the Trump family businesses are both brazen enough and foolish enough to ignore all signs of risk, both financial and legal. Heck, Trump even tweeted about his Oval Office meeting. And here, back to the New Yorker, Ross Delston, a prominent anti-money laundering attorney in Washington, D.C., told me that if one of his clients approached him with the possibility of entering a licensing relationship with the people involved in the Batumi deal, he, quote, would tell them not to walk away, but to run away, run like hell. He explained, there are too many aspects of the deal that don't make sense. And there's no way, as an outsider, Donald Trump and Kazakh banks and Georgian oligarchs, no way as an outsider to all of that, that you could conduct sufficient due diligence to figure out if it is criminal. Perhaps belatedly recognizing the risks involved, Trump and his lawyers have become increasingly agitated about scrutiny of their business dealings in Georgia. President Donald Trump's attorney, Jay Sekulow, So many of these attorneys running around now recently told me that the investigation being led by Robert Mueller should focus on one question: whether there was coordination between the Russian government and people on the Trump campaign. Sekula went on, I want to be really specific. A real estate deal would be outside the scope of legitimate inquiry, according to Jay, anyway. If he senses drift, if I sense any drift in Mueller's investigation, he said he'll warn the special counsel's office that it is exceeding its mandate. The issue will first be raised informally, he noted, but if Mueller and his team persist, Sekula said, he might lodge a formal objection with the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, who has the power to dismiss Mueller and end the inquiry. President Trump has been even more blunt, hinting to the Times that he might fire Mueller if the investigation looks too closely at his business dealings, always under that threat. Those threats are tactics Trump learned from the McCarthy aide character assassin and bully Roy Cohn, of course. Cohn, the lawyer who convinced the Trumps to countersue the Justice Department in the 1970s when they were accused of housing discrimination. Cohn would routinely threaten to sue anyone who opposed him and taught Trump to do the same. All right. Well, anyway, this playbook intimidates enough people to allow you to get away with a lot. That is the Cohn playbook. Never settle, never surrender, counterattack and countersue immediately. No matter what happens, no matter how deeply into the muck you get, claim victory, never admit defeat. So it does. It lets you get away with a lot. It also slows down those who aren't intimidated as they doubt themselves and check and cross-check their information. This is why Trump repeatedly threatens and maligns everyone who opposes them. Now, a bit of a quote here from Business Insider. Trump has reportedly grown irritated by the follow-the-money approach Mueller has taken to the investigation, but it is easy to imagine why Trump's loans, debts, and business empire, which has benefited from money flowing out of Russia, would warrant Mueller's scrutiny as he tries to trace the origins of Russia's interest in the Trump campaign and determine whether Moscow holds any leverage over Trump and his associates. Roger Stone also learned many of these techniques while working for Richard Nixon. He was later coached by Roy Cohn and used the same bullying tactics while working on Ronald Reagan's presidential campaign. It was during this campaign that Stone first came in contact with Donald Trump. Here's the problem with these tactics, Subir concludes. Virtually all the people who employed them, Joseph McCarthy, Richard Nixon, Roy Cohn, eventually saw their careers and reputations destroyed, but not before they'd caused immense harm to many, many others. And I guess we're going to have to sit through that harm right about now. All right, very interesting. And once again, credit there for the inspiration of those two excellent summaries by both Subir and Mark Sumner. Credit to Dan Alexander's piece in Forbes about the biggest potential conflict of interest hiding in plain sight. Co-authored, by the way, down here, off of the byline, by Matt Drange, whose name I don't believe we've called yet, but if he co-authored the piece that has inspired so much good writing on our pages, he deserves a shout-out for that work. All right, let's see. There's big stories. There's little stories. There's weird stories. There's substantive stories, and of course, always lingering outside the promise of a call, the hint, let's say, of a call from Joan McCarter. I assume it's a busy day, but I know also, it's just kind of, it's tough to cover the Congress beat these days. There's just not a whole hell of a lot of uplifting, inspiring work going on there. So, it's a tough day. It's always a tough day. All right. So here's a couple of things. Let's see. This one's a little more substantive than the rest, and it involves David Farenthold, and so that's always a good place to start. Back to the story of Trump and his philanthropic contributions, or lack thereof. He's a weird guy, Donald Trump. The way he the way he gives to charity, which is to say, the way he doesn't give anything to charity. Or if something goes to a charity, it's not his money, it's someone else's. And even when he paints himself into a corner and says, okay, I, being a rich, super rich, amazing, successful businessman, I'm not even going to take my federal salary. I'm going to waive my federal salary. I can't do that. Okay, I'll give it away. I will give it away to charity. And because he's got millions and millions of dollars sitting around, he gives it away every time he gets a quarterly check from the government for his salary, $100,000. So he's now given away another chunk of it. And what is the charity that he's giving it to? It's not a charity. It's the government. And that's not a bad thing, right? Giving money to the government. I mean, if you're a super patriot and all that stuff. Of course, once again, although all Republican big government theory and taxation theory is out the window, right? Well, you don't want to give our tax money. We don't give your hard-earned money to the government through taxation now. Functions that the government should be taking care of could be taken care of by private charity. Everybody donate to charity. You eliminate the charitable contributions deduction. That's totally ass backwards. And now, of course, the big anti-big government guy gets elected and he immediately is donating his money to the government. But who does this? Trump donates $100,000 of his salary to a new federal grant program for infrastructure projects. I told you this was Infrastructure Week. That's what's going on. To show that it's Infrastructure Week and that he totally has a plan, his $100,000 paycheck is going to be donated to the Department of Transportation, that beautiful, beautiful charity, the Department of Transportation, for use in helping to fund a new grant program. So that sounds like charity. It funds grants, but they're federal grants. To help fund a grant program for repairing or building infrastructure. What kind of infrastructure? Infrastructure that serves charitable purposes? No, just, infrastructure. How are they doing on those grants? Haven't, made any at this point. But it is Infrastructure Week. Trump, who has claimed a wealth of $10 billion, of course, which he doesn't have, promised before taking office that he would donate his $400,000 annual salary. David Farenthold reminds us. So far, he has donated it in quarterly chunks, all to various federal agencies. His favorite charity, all of a sudden. In this case, Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao said Tuesday's gift would go to a new grant program called the Infrastructure for Building America. Okay, what a great program. It's brand new. How's it doing? The program is intended to give high priority to state and local governments that have raised their own funds before asking for federal help. The Transportation Department said this program has not made any grants yet, although it is considering grant applications. So at least they have that going for it. That's some lovely music. It must mean Joan McCarter is here to join with us. Hey, good morning, Joan. How are you?
Happy Infrastructure Week.
Thank you. It's working out great, including, of course,
indeed.
Yeah, including, of course, the infrastructure of our upcoming break. But
I know. I'm sorry. I called in just in time. But
I don't mind. We'll take you for whatever a couple of minutes we can get. But isn't that something? Now that's how we know it's Infrastructure Week. He took $100,000 of government money that was supposed to go to him for his salary and turned around and gave it back to the government, which is, I guess, all in all, not a horrible thing. But who does this? I've never met anybody who says, what's your favorite charity? Department of Transportation.
Well, if he tries to claim it as a charitable deduction, then we've got a problem.
Yeah, well, that's true. Then there would be.
But we won't ever know because we'll never see his tax return.
That's true too. And by the way, so the article goes on at some length about maybe some of the things that they might do with these things. And he's previously given money to the National Park Service, the Department of Education, and the Department of Health and Human Services. By the way, once again, the article goes on to peg for, in passing, the cost of the recent Republican tax bill at $1.5 billion. And it gives us another opportunity to say, no, the cost is, yes, right. First of all, trillion, yes. And second of all, that it's actually, $2.5 trillion. A trillion of it is recovered by taxing you more, so that the billionaires can get the net 1.5 trillion giveaway up at the top. Okay. So with that out of the way, it is of course, nearly time for us to
It's time
exit
for
for
a
our
break.
break. But that will give you and I a few moments of quiet to try and figure out, okay, what the hell's going on here, and what are we going to talk about? But we won't start that conference for another 30 seconds.
It's a bad week, Kagro.
Yes. It's a difficult. We try to do it one day at a time, but all the days are terrible too.
All the days are terrible. Every day gets worse.
Yeah. All right. Well, we might as well attack this while we can manage it. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? But I can tell you what's happening for the next 2 minutes. We're on break. We'll be right back. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Now joined before the break by Joan McCarter, and now joined by the opportunity to let her say something on the radio. So we're going to try that as an approach to talking with Joan. Hi, Joan.
Hi, Kagro.
There
How are
you
you?
Well, I was better before the break, and then I got all depressed because you told me all the terrible things that were happening. It's not your fault. You're just reporting, and you're reporting. I'm deciding to become depressed. It's up to me.
Well, I didn't want to have to talk about immigration today. I wanted Armando to come in my time so that we could talk about something else, but I have to talk about immigration.
You do not have to. I mean, it is important, obviously. But
It's important. It's not good.
No.
The only thing I can think of that we can do is call our Democratic senators and say, don't take any bad deals.
Take only great deals.
I don't see how we come out of this with Dreamers protected unless it's through the courts.
Yeah, there's a glimmer of hope there.
That's the best glimmer I have, that somehow the courts will save us until maybe we have a Democratic Congress next year, because Republicans are lining up hard behind Trump's plan. McConnell says that's what he supports. Trump issued a veto his staff is saying he'll veto anything that doesn't have his 4 pillars, the white supremacist wish list. And he issued a statement this morning saying he wants every senator to support his plan, and he won't consider any short-term fix, anything less than his plan. That gives Paul Ryan room to say, yeah, I told you before, nothing will come to the floor that Trump won't sign. So there you go. It's a line in the sand for Democrats, and the fear is Democrats will be Democrats and try to negotiate inside of that.
Yeah, I guess that's a possibility. But one thing you could do is say, all right, well, let him veto whatever he wants to do, I guess. I mean, I'm voting no on all these things.
You have to think that there are going to be enough Republicans to join the Democrats in supporting something more moderate.
They might just not initially offer anything more moderate. I don't know what negotiation there even can be. I mean, they'll put forth a plan. It'll suck. We'll say we don't want any part of it. And in the House, it won't matter. They'll just go ahead and pass it. And then I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens where.
A Clean Dream Act would pass, or would have before.
Yeah.
The well got so poisoned.
I guess so. And now, of course, they'd say, well, okay, it would pass, but would it, Trump would veto it, so now I'm not going to bother with it. It's a big waste of time. Let's get to all the other hugely important sweeping pieces of legislation we're considering, but for our work on immigration, which are, for instance, let's see. Can't think of any. All right. Well, I mean, I guess there's that. I guess we just sit and wait until there's something dragged to the floor. But I still don't even know what it's going to be.
The opening gambit for McConnell was not even something that's in Trump's wish list.
Oh,
it was defunding sanctuary cities, which is
not
nothing but a campaign issue. Period.
So that's not even one of his four pillars, I guess.
Well, for Republicans to campaign on sanctuary cities, they'd lost both the governorships in 2017 in New Jersey and Virginia, trying to run on sanctuary cities. But this is what Republicans are running on in 2018, and that was the First Amendment one from Pat Toomey that McConnell offered up yesterday.
Okay, not
not even related to Dreamers and the underlying immigration reforms that Trump supposedly wants.
I'm surprised it's just that it isn't on his wish list, though. Maybe it is.
Well, it is.
I forgot
that
one.
Issue, not as,
Okay. I mean, he wouldn't be upset to see it.
No. So Schumer blocked it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't vote on it, and they didn't do anything. You might remember that McConnell promised weeks of open-ended debate. Now he's saying it has to be done by the end of the day tomorrow.
That's a little bit like weeks.
And McConnell also, he's been moving goalposts. That was the first one. Then he said, whatever we come up with has to have at least 30 Republicans supporting it. And then he said, and by the way, I fully support Trump's plan. So McConnell's done everything he can to smash the scale here against Democrats. How they respond, refusing to vote for anything that Republicans come up with and then put up Clean Dream Act is their only gambit that I can see.
Let's see now. They have, it just occurred to me. So he comes up with this idea of 30 Republicans have to support it, which I guess it's funny. I mean,
it's not anything he can really enforce.
Yeah, I mean,
like in the House, where Ryan can control with the Hastert rule.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, I mean, it's the rough equivalent. I mean, it's the Hastert rule, essentially by the numbers. I mean, if I was wondering, well, where did he pull 30 from? Yeah. Why 30? And the Hastert rule, as originally conceived, way back before we knew he was a pedophile. I don't even know what to say about that. That they're stuck with it. I know they bang their heads against the wall every time that's mentioned again, but they keep going back to it. Was that no bill would come to the floor without 60% support among the Republican conference.
Right.
Not just 50 plus 1, but 60% had to be an overwhelming favorite, essentially, of the Republican conference in order to even come to the floor. So that it was known before you did anything that anything that passed the House was a Republican initiative. You couldn't bring a Democratic initiative to the floor unless it was also great for Republicans. There being now 51 senators, Republican senators in the Senate, 60% of that is 30.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the Hastert rule, but we give McConnell this small amount of credit for knowing, I don't call it the pedophile Hastert rule. It's something else. Oh, okay. It's the 30 Republican rule. All right. Why? Because it's 60% and it's the Hastert rule. But don't put Hastert's name on it. Good. Well, that's good thinking. So at least there's that. You mentioned that there was some glimmer of hope from the judicial branch. I understand there was another district court injunction announced yesterday, was it?
Yeah, against Trump repealing essentially lifting the executive order on March 5th.
Okay.
Uh,
Exciting news, but how well does that stand up? Do we have any idea?
I don't have any idea. I haven't had a chance to look into that a lot. And will ICE abide by it?
That's the wildest of wild cards in the executive branch. ICE doesn't seem to be interested in, observing any sort of law or order. So they're definitely out there on their own. I know from background discussion, Armando is fairly skeptical of the ability of the courts to maintain this sort of intervention.
Yeah.
They can put a temporary restraining order or at this point in place because it's not March yet, so we're not in terrible danger of testing their power on this one at the moment.
Right.
But it may not stand that long.
And what
anyway.
happens March 5th?
I would think pretty quickly, of course, the circuit courts would take it up, and rather than just allowing things to come to a showdown on March 5th, as between the president and a district court, probably not a good match. They'll basically hand this over to the circuit courts, and the circuit courts. Well, I don't know where did the district court reside? Do you know where that was?
No, I don't know what it was. I'm sorry.
By the time we learn this stuff, it'll be over anyway. But yeah, so it would depend where, of course, the court was and which circuit court would take it up. But yeah, as Armando points out, not a whole lot of hope for circuit courts and above, say, sustaining the idea that a presidential executive order isn't reversible by another presidential executive order.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We will see. But you did have a lighter note on the immigration front. I noticed lots of people discussing this one.
Melania's parents.
Yeah.
We're not, we still haven't seen all of the records that were promised in, September? On Melania's immigration status, how she got here. And was she working here illegally? But,
yes. Is the answer.
Whatever, Melania's not going to get deported.
Yeah, probably not.
Parents are an interesting thing, though.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the White House is refusing to let anybody know what visa her parents are here under.
That is odd, and probably a pretty good indication that it is the kind of visa that would get them in trouble and deported if they were someone else.
Quite possibly, yes. And it's also interesting to think about Trump's proposal for what he calls chain migration, family reunification.
Right.
Would mean Melania's parents couldn't be here.
Right, as they are family.
They are family. They are not the right kind. They are not immediate family. They are not a spouse or a child.
Not even. Okay.
So they couldn't qualify.
Yeah.
In Trump's plan for permanent residency.
Well, what about if he really would like that? Would that be okay under his plan? If I really want that, maybe we'll do it?
Well, it does in Trump's head.
There you go. That's the one that matters.
Yeah.
In this administration. Yeah. And now, by the way, do we know do her parents live in D.C. or even in the White House? Maybe even, I don't know.
As far as anybody knows, yeah, they live in the White House.
That is an odd thing too.
And at Mar-a-Lago.
Sure.
And at Trump Tower. And at Bedminster, I think.
Boy, they have a lot of houses.
Yeah.
And in the same places that Donald Trump has houses.
Yeah.
They may live with them.
They're taking care of Barron.
Oh.
Is the story.
All right. So au pairs. That's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. They're got work visas. I mean, it's nice for the same reason that family reunification is always nice.
Exactly.
But yeah. hypocritical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's our example of family reunification. Here's our example of immigrant families being able to maintain themselves.
Yeah. It's a good thing for people who are pro-family, like us.
It's a really good thing. And Barron probably needs some outside influences, not Trump.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how much influence Donald Trump has on him, but
Yeah, I don't think
That's
Trump
okay.
even really is aware most days that he has a youngest son.
yeah, right. Not very often, but okay. So and Melania likely will need some help, and grandparents would be a fantastic source of help. Many families rely on them. Armando says her sister is also, I guess, in some question, but that's not who's being tweeted about, so we don't know.
Oh, I hadn't seen any stories on her sister. I'll have to look for that.
Okay.
Armando, you can join us if you want to.
Oh yes, I know. If you're really itching to, I know he's very reluctant to step on anybody else's segments, but it's a tough day. But yeah, the immigration status. I have to say, I mean, there wasn't much to add to the fact that this question exists, and I was sort of forced to go with the most basic possible Twitter response to, for instance, Jonathan Martin tweeting, "The White House won't say what the immigration status of Melania's parents is." The answer to that is, of course, duh. They don't have to. The fact that they didn't tells you all you need to know. Their status is the same as thousands of people who are otherwise in danger of deportation.
Right.
But they know Donald Trump, and Donald Trump wants what he wants. I mean, I had to use it twice. at least
Being
5
Trump, he
strings.
probably doesn't care.
Yeah. I mean, but isn't that hypocritical? Yup. Okay. But so what? If I wasn't entitled
Being
to
Trump, he probably doesn't care whether his in-laws are there or not.
that that is a better point. You're probably right about that one. To be honest, they could get the hell out, get their. You know what? That's the biggest. That's the biggest freeloader immigration story out there, and he doesn't care.
Yeah.
They are freeloading off of you directly, and you don't care. Well, maybe that's a good Valentine's Day story. He must really love Melania.
He must really love Melania.
To put up with that. Your parents, they can live in all 11 of my mansions. Whenever I go, they should come with us. We're going on vacation, come along. That's fine. I don't know. I guess it keeps Melania happy, and maybe that's the nicest
clearly
thing.
Melania needs to be kept happy.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. We're not doing a good job keeping her happy. She's not happy.
No.
That's true.
No, she is not a happy camper.
But it could be worse, I assume. If he was also torturing her by deporting her parents, I think things would get worse.
Yeah, she would definitely leave, and I don't know what difference that would make. He wouldn't lose any support if Melania left him.
I can't imagine. No, I can't imagine that would be the case. I don't know what.
Nothing
says.
matters, Kagro.
Yeah, I guess not. And I mean, forget it. Yeah.
So today's just getting better and better and better all the time. Now we find out. Let's completely switch gears and talk about the other thing I always talk about. Obamacare.
Okay. All right. I was like, yes.
And Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
And Idaho.
Oh. All right, then.
You might remember, because I yelled about this before, Governor Otter decided that federal law doesn't apply to Idaho. He decides this about a lot of things, but he specifically decided Obamacare doesn't apply. And he created an executive order to allow insurance companies to sell plans that are outside of the law. Basically.
Yes. Okay. Gotcha. I remember that.
Obamacare sets out all of the things that insurance policies have to meet, and Otter says, nope, they don't have to. The thought was insurance companies would be really unlikely to try this because they would get sued. But an insurance company has decided to do it.
All right. Big risk.
Big risk. And they'll be able to have a plan that charges sick people more than healthy people. They can limit annual coverage. They can not cover maternity care, all of the things that is expressly not allowed under the Affordable Care Act. They're going to try to do.
Is it an in-state insurer in Idaho? Is that it's not
Yeah.
out-of-state person? Okay.
It's an in-state insurer.
And ever heard of them before?
Let me check again.
Because you're walking into a lawsuit, just like you said.
You're walking. Well, interestingly enough, it's Blue Cross in Idaho.
Okay, so, what would motivate them to do that? And so I guess that
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, usually I would think my suspicion was that it might be a local insurer, owned by a conservative person, and they've been assured by Judicial Watch that they'll cover their legal fees or whatever, something like that.
That could very well be the case. I mean, how Blue Cross, they are nationally offered plans, but they are also in state. So this is Blue Cross of Idaho.
Yeah. Okay. That's it's unusual. I don't know what would drive them to try it, but I don't know who's the head of Blue Cross in Idaho either.
I think they can be fairly assured that the Trump administration isn't going to do anything to enforce the law.
Yeah. No, I imagine
to slap them down.
But they would, I guess, get some, some of their clients, their beneficiaries and customers would say it's illegal under federal law for you to have such poor coverage. And I mean, there's certainly counter arguments to it, but one of the ones you wouldn't want to make, say, as a big business with like Blue Cross Blue Shield, that they could have its image impacted across state lines. It's the one thing they can do across state lines. You wouldn't want to be in the position of countersuing or answering customer suits by saying, yeah, we can give you crappy service. Certainly we can. Sure, the federal law says we can't, but to hell with you, we got more lawyers than you do.
Yeah.
And that is sort of their business model, but they don't like to advertise that.
Well, and it's the Idaho Republican model.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true.
I mean, we've got Raul Labrador, Labrador from Freedom Caucus fame, coming back to run for governor here. And his platform is marriages between a man and a woman. So he's pledging he's going to keep up the marriage fight.
Okay.
So, the Idaho Republican way is to pretend like the Supreme Court and the Supremacy Clause don't exist. Okay. And then when they get sued and taxpayers have to pay ridiculous amounts of money for ridiculous lawsuits, call that standing up to the feds.
Well, there are a couple places that could work, and Idaho may be one of them.
It's one of them.
Yeah. Sorry.
My stupid state.
Yeah, it's not your fault. Well, okay. I guess that's some platform, by the way. I mean, I assume there's something else in it too, but maybe not.
That's the main one, it seems like, for now, in his primary.
Okay. Sure. Why not? Also,
sure, why not?
Yeah, I'm paleo, but
almost to the point of re-registering as a Republican, so I can add one more vote to the slightly less crazy guy, the current lieutenant governor. But I just don't think I can do that.
No, I don't think it would bother you too much. Well, okay, so yeah, I'm still a mystery why anybody would want to get involved in that lawsuit, much less the Blue Cross Blue Shield gang. Although I'm sure that they're a fairly conservative bunch.
I can't imagine. The thought was no insurer would want to step into this wasp's nest because they're going to get sued.
Yeah. Well, someone's, I guess, looking for that kind of attention, and I maybe later I'll look up who's the head of Blue Cross Blue Shield in Idaho and see what kind of person they are.
Charlene Maher is the CEO,
No
and I'm sure she's a
bells.
Republican, and I'm sure she studies with Butch.
Well, we'll see if we can't figure that one out a little bit. I mean, other than that, let's see. What other any other news items to try to squeeze in? I mean, I'm glancing around.
Armando covered Michael Cohen pretty well.
Yes, yeah, that's true. And
that's pretty nutty.
That's a very weird situation. His notes on the DACA issue, which I don't think we will be able to really fit in before we finished up, are pretty interesting. Maybe we'll visit that tomorrow with him. But essentially, it presents itself in a very weird way. The Trump administration in this particular court fight, of course, pretending that they don't actually want to end DACA.
Yeah.
But they think that DACA wouldn't stand up to a test in court because it was done by executive order. And they find...
Because the Republican Congress refused to act.
Yeah. So it kind of forces them. So they're pretending they are testing the Obama administration's, the strength of their Office of Legal Counsel memo counseling that DACA is something you could do by executive order. So it's very weird and interesting, and I guess that puts it on the case in a weird procedural posture, as they say. And so you got now a judge saying you're wrong in that assumption, and so I'm enjoining you from reversing the order based on the assumption that Obama wasn't authorized to do it in the first place. And but I don't know whether that's the same as the test that they might apply at a higher level. It's a very weird situation, but it all stems from the fact that the Trump approach to this is insisting that you haven't got the power to do this by executive order. However, we have the power to undo it by executive order, which is also sort of an interesting place to be. It's a baffling approach to everything. And then I guess we're seeing it play out on multiple battlefields, like the supremacy clause issues and the healthcare bill that you just discussed. They just sort of, you know what, we occupy both sides of this issue. Maybe yes, maybe no. Yes when we want it, no when you want it, but that's a familiar refrain now.
Yes, it is. And everything is awful.
Okay. Well, this is a bad day.
It's a bad day, Kagro. I'm sorry to come here and be such a downer, but it's a bad day. It's really
Donald Trump's fault. You don't need to worry about it. I will. We'll say this. Here's a good way to end. I don't know. It seems like a fun thing. I don't know if you saw this one, but it was a diary I picked up at Daily Kos the other day about the I guess in reaction, the Republican negative reaction to President Obama's official portrait having been unveiled, and lots of art criticism about it, of course. But it was a good opportunity to go back and look at the stupid portraits that Donald Trump has in the past commissioned of himself, including that bizarro one of him in the V-neck sweater, standing.
Yeah.
Hey, okay.
Yeah.
There's a fun diary out there by Otto that alleges that the Trump portrait, this portrait, which by the way hangs in Mar-a-Lago, is actually Trump's head basically cut and pasted onto somebody else's body. That portrait was painted of someone else.
Is.
Well, now that may have been from a time when he was
39 pounds.
Right. It may have been from a time when he was a little closer to 239 pounds.
Because he does not have those shoulders.
No, and it's just an odd thing. And also, I've never seen him in a sweater, anything like that. That's just not his sort of outfit. But I guess he saw a portrait of somebody who must have been dashing and handsome at the time, and it looks like that picture is included here. so you can compare it side by side with the one that ended up being of Donald Trump. But I guess he sees portraits and says, "That's my image of myself. Take that and put my head on it, and it's going to be my official portrait." It's a very weird thing, and just I don't know. It seems like as good a capper to the day as anything. So everyone can look forward to take a look at Otto's.
Oh, there's the picture.
Yeah.
I found the diary.
It's pretty bizarre, isn't it? And the guy, you could see why. Anybody else, I don't know, in passing, you say, well, okay, he's a good-looking guy and everything, but I would never go, how would I put my head on him? Donald Trump would look at that guy and say, that's me, to a T. Put me on that.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Next week we'll come back. There'll be something probably better or laughably worse. Thank you, Joan, for coming by and trying to squeak through the day with us here. Take care and good luck with the day.
Better next week.
All right. Thanks again, Joan. Take care.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
From Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
It's an important day to stay tuned for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Justice Putnam next year on Netroots Radio because we had such difficulty getting to the rest of the news. How about this? Senator Kamala Harris asked FBI Director Wray if Trump should be recused from the Trump-Russia intelligence question entirely. Find out what happened in that exchange next.